Hello and welcome everyone back to finally doing Deadlock content again. I know I can be a little back and forth with what we're going to do and what I'm planning on doing, but we're going to finally stick to it, and the future is going to look like this, where anytime that I do get bored or maybe want to do something different, I'm just going to play a different character. You know, there isn't going to be a new video on any characters in the future. We're going to be focused back on Deadlock. I did just need to take a break, but that's not the main focus that we're going to be looking at right now. Today, we are going to be looking at finally going over a map that I don't know why I haven't gone over sooner. Ascent. Ascent is the basic, the bread and butter, the Valorant map that everyone knows. This is a map that has been highly requested on talking about, going over it, you know, showcasing. Except with this guide, we're going to do something a little bit different. Instead of me going over every little nitty gritty thing, such as with the Fracture and Pearl guides, where they were an hour and 40 minutes long respectively, I want this to be short, concise, and I want new players and veterans to be able to kind of get an understanding of how I look at this map as a Deadlock one trick. How am I looking at it? How am I playing it? If there's anything that I don't go over, anything I miss, feel free to leave a comment. Feel free to join the Discord server. If it's a lengthy question, if it's a back and forth question, I am going to help you guys wherever you ask, wherever you need help. But that's pretty much everything I wanted to say. And if you guys do enjoy the content, if you guys are ready for more Deadlock content, because I do have some things cooking up, leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe, let me know what you think, let me know what you want to see in the future. I try to post things on like my YouTube channel's post page, asking you guys what you want to see, but don't be afraid to also let me know, hey, I want to see a sunset guide, I want to see this, I want to see that. I want to know and be able to engage with you guys on what you guys want to see. But enough intro, we're going to get straight into it by talking about defense, then we're going to talk about offense, and then I'm going to give you guys like 4 lineups for each ability in like a little showcase afterwards. So let's go ahead and start with talking about defense. All right, the first thing that comes with defense is picking a side. What side are we going to go? Are we going to go A? Are we going to go B? Are we worried about mid? And yes, mid is actually going to be one of our biggest concerns on this map. Deadlock not having passive info utility is one of her biggest weaknesses. So you have to kind of make a decision. Do you want to play A or do you want to play B? In my opinion, B is a better site for Deadlock. It is a much better area for her utility. There's a lot more places to put it, a lot more places for her to play comparatively to A. On A, you're a little bit more restricted on how you can play. You're a little bit more stuck on the areas that you can be in. So I prefer to play B, but I also don't have an issue playing A. It's like a 60-40 kind of situation, almost like 55-45. It's, you know, right down the middle. It's very close. But what changes on both sides is how you handle mid. And this is where you kind of have to be okay with playing either site, because depending on where your teammates are going, if you have a Jet holding with an op mid or just someone holding mid in general, then we need to be concerned about this mid. If we have someone playing tree and mid, then we can be more focused on site. If we have, you know, no one tree, then when we're playing A, we need to be concerned of this. And I'm going to go over how to play all of these examples properly. Also, the defense section is going to be a lot longer than the attack section, because the attack section, I only really have one main thing that I want to go over, but we'll get to that later on. So let's go ahead and explain the B side real quick. All right, we are on the B side. The B side allows us to play a variety of different ways, because there's a lot of cooler things that you can do on this side. But the first question that I am going to try and figure out in a game is, do we have somebody that can play mid? And if we do have somebody that can play mid, do they need to be playing mid? For example, if the enemies are not playing around mid, because let's be honest, even in Ascended Elo, low Immortal Elo that I play in, I don't notice a lot of people pushing through mid, like this part of mid. They do go tree, that's a whole different, you know, thing to be talking about. But the mid, I don't notice a lot of people actually taking advantage of it, even myself, who should be taking advantage of it, because it is such a strong piece of area to take when playing this map. So your first question is going to be basically a yes or no. If no one is playing mid, then, but we are concerned of the enemies pushing through mid, then we need to be tossing our wall here to block it off. It's very simple, very easy, and all you have to do is just play from up here with sensors on like the post here and on the switch here. This allows us to play up here, and then when if we get smoked off, then we just slow them down. You know, we can toss net from here to slow them down. We then have sensors to slow them down, so on and so on. Or you could even play back here all the way in your spawn and toss the wall from here. As you can see, this wall would extend over to here to cover it, and then we just can play CT, and then we can play off our trips, or we can just get into sight. Now, some people will point out the wall only lasts for 30 seconds. The idea is that when you're lurking, you typically want to kind of lurk earlier into the round. So they're either going to shoot the wall, breaking it, and revealing themselves, or they're going to be wasting 30 seconds waiting for the wall to go down and then lurking through. Again, this is something you want to keep conscious in your mind, because there are people that will wait for the wall to break and then do a super late lurk into the round after the enemies have taken a site. This is just something to be concerned of, be aware of, you know, double check. You want to be that person that they are complaining about, like, why is this guy even watching me? You know, you catch them off guard, but it's also something you don't want to be super duper focused on. So that's the main idea to begin with. Do you have someone that is playing mid? If not, then don't, or if they are, don't worry about walling this. We can use our wall to block off people from main, so on and so on. But and also, if you notice, hey, the enemies are not pushing through mid, I'm no longer concerned about this, then don't worry about it. Just leave mid alone. This is something that we can pay attention to later on. But that's just something I wanted to very quickly go over. I'll also say the same thing on A site. So how do we defend B site itself? Well, we have a lot of sensors to work with. One that I will always use, this is my bread and butter, is putting this on the back wall, specifically making sure that the sound box is on the edge right here. So that way, when people are coming through, at this point, they're watching here, and we can't see the sensor for the enemies right now until we get up to here, which then we would be able to see the sensor, but we are so far out into the site and exposed to so many angles that we are not going to be looking at it. So this is why I like to put this sensor here. Then you also have more bread and butters like this one. These are just, you know, get anybody pushing out. This stops the person going to switch. You also have something like this, just to have it up in a different angle. You have this sensor up here, which you can tilt down a little bit, and then this gets anybody going to lane or running to switch. And those are just all the kind of cool sensors that you can do. There's plenty more to look around. Again, if you just kind of sit in a custom and walk around and think about it for a little bit, you can find a whole bunch of different sensors to go ahead and do in your games. I'm going to be making a sensor video that goes way more in depth. Again, these guides are going to become a lot more focused on explaining how to play the map itself. One of the things I do want to explain, and this goes for A site as well, is deciding what you want to do. Do you want to be aggressive? Do you want to be passive? And how are you wanting to go about that? For example, if you want to go passive, then we should know that mid is safe, so we don't need to worry about that. Then we would place sensors like this, and maybe like another one for when they're pushing into sight down here, just so then we can play boathouse and hide back. Or you can do something that I like to do a lot, which is I put this sensor here, and this is still my passive setup. And you sit up here, swing off when your sensor goes off, and then we have the second sensor, so we drop down the sight, and then we can play here, or we can run to boathouse. And the reason why it's passive is because, yes, we are fighting off the sensor, but I'm going to be throwing my wall, and then the second my wall breaks, I'm throwing my net on top of it to completely stall them out. That is the entire idea of playing passive on Deadlock. I don't think it's good to play this way all the time, because I think Deadlock's kit rewards you for playing aggressive. But I also don't think it's good to always play aggressive, because once you've fermented in their mind, in the enemy's minds, that you are playing aggressive, they're going to take these angles in the mains way more cautiously. So you can't always do that. You're going to get flashed, util dumped, all this different stuff to get you off the corner. So, but if you are wanting to play aggressive, for example, if the enemies are playing super aggressive, then you can meet their aggression if your passive hold is not enough. Because if they're all coming out at the same time, you can only do so much with your sentinel utility. You know, we can have this sensor, but if Jet dashes over it and then we maybe get one here, well, Jet's making her way around to come get us over here, and then we're pinched. There's only so much we can do. If, you know, that's just one scenario out of 100 that could happen. So, for example, if we want to fight here, we have 2 options that I personally like doing. One is right at the beginning of the round. If you stare at this lamppost right here, you can put this sensor here, and then if they're not immediately playing aggressive and letting you know they're there, you can always like kind of pop out and try to bait a shot and pull them to this sensor, and then once they get close, you know, you kind of keep baiting them, they set off the sensor, and then you get your kill. Now, if they're just running you down, then you can just, you know, hold this and fight on the sensor. The other idea is, if you look at this sensor here, this is not my sensor, this is elok sensor. He's more known for the through wall sensors, just wanted to give a little credit there. This sensor right here on the wall goes through it and hits anybody trying to reach the orb area. And then if you do a deep sensor right here, this sensor is too fast to be broken. And most people aren't going to hear it anyway if they're just rushing you down. And now you've created this massive stun area. And I like to just kind of bombard them with utils, so you can always toss your net on top of it, wait for them to pull the net out, and then have them run out. And then once they start setting the stuns off, you can start, you know, spraying them down. This is also good to do with like a duelist player or even just a second player in general, because you are probably going to be facing like 5 or 4 of them. These are the 2 main ways that I like to look at playing Deadlock on defense on B on Ascent. is if they're playing aggressive, match their aggression. If that's not working, play passive. You have plenty of different ways to play passive. And then there's also this kind of like middle ground that I like. You can do, you know, a sensor like this for their run out, and then you can do this sensor over here like this.
Sound sensor up.
And you kind of have this middle ground now where you're playing passive, but you're also playing aggressive because we're coming out here to fight off of the sensor. A wall you can even do is something like this because it completely walls them off of switch and entry to literally anywhere else. They have to go lane unless they want to start breaking this, the small nodes or the big node. And if they break the small node, then they only get access to here. And if they break the big node, they're just wasting time. It's also easy for you to come out here and get a kill, because if this is smoked out, they're going to be having to come out here to properly spray it. So this kind of sets up like a middle ground area of passive and aggression that you can also play off of. And one other piece of advice that I want to go over, that I've gone over before, but I want to solidify this, and especially when I come to make a Deadlock specific guide, like just talking about how to play Deadlock in general, your net should be used either for doubling up util, whether that be like a nade or anything like that, a molly. You also can use the wall, the net as a pseudo wall, because this net, if you time it right, you can hit 4 even after the nerfs. It is not that bad. You can hit 4 or the entire team very easily. Even 3 people is still good enough to stall out an entire push. So I like to think of this as a secondary wall. So, for example, before I even consider fighting off of this utility, I would only do this if there's a smoke up. But we know there's a smoke. We know the smoke's up. They haven't come out yet, but we know they're about to. You want to time that for right before they come out. It's kind of just a prediction thing. It's not really a skill thing, but it's just kind of getting an idea of, are they rushing really fast? Are they rushing and then going quiet? You know, you kind of get that idea and feel of what's going on. And once you, again, make sure you have this smoke up, because we don't want to swing out into 4 people staring at you. You're going to net. Hopefully you hit 2 or 3, completely stall out their push. And as they're pulling the net out, there you go. You put a wall in front of their face. Now they have to break the wall on top of that. Or you do it vice versa. You place the wall preemptively, and then right before they come out, you net them, and then they're presented with a wall in their face as they're trying to come out of the smoke. Those are just ideas that I'm throwing in your head. These are kind of in general ideas while also going over Ascent specific ideas. So besides that, I don't have much of else to say for defending on B site. We're gonna go ahead and move over to the A site and talk about that, because the only other thing that I can really go over is ult lineups, but ult lineups are only used really on retaking. The only other idea that I can give you is using the ult to fight the enemies. So you can like do an ult like that and then come play while they're come fight while they're all trying to shoot the cocoon going up. But besides that, they're really, again, it's just ult lineups for retaking. So the only time that I would personally be using an ult lineup to retake is when you know, like we're coming back to B, you know, maybe I've lit them in sight. Maybe I was playing A and now we're coming B. You need to wait for your entire team to be here, and also make sure that it's not like a round that clearly is losable, because I don't think it's worth it to ult then. But for example, just to show you one off, if you sit in the corner over here and look up at this middle window, this bounces up and hits the entirety of the plant site over here. And again, if it doesn't hit the planter, it's going to hit somebody else that's, you know, wandering around. For retaking ults, it's just something I don't want to go over too much, because I don't think it's something about defending on Ascent that is very helpful. And it's more of something that you keep in your back pocket once you feel really comfortable and you're going, you know, it's more of like a kind of once in a while scenario type of thing. But let's go ahead and move on to A, then we'll talk about attack. But with all that, let's move over to the A site. Okay, so for the A site, we're going to be revisiting the same question. What is going on with mid? How are we handling mid? If we're playing A, our first question is going to be, do we have somebody playing tree? Which is more than likely going to be a no. More than likely, you're going to have someone sitting here at A main, one of your duelists who wants to fight A main. That's okay. So the idea is, let's just run with the idea that solely there's going to be no one playing tree. The only thing I suggest you do is just toss a sensor here, and then we're going to play tree. Our other sensor is going to go right here, and then at the beginning of the round, we'll kind of, you know, wait a second if we hear anything. And then if not, after that first like 5 or 6 seconds of waiting, I just toss my wall, because again, if they're going B, our wall is not really going to do anything. Sometimes it can, if you find like a weird scenario where you can like lock somebody off if they're like sitting in B main late. I personally just prefer to use this, because most of the time it ends up being like, oh, they're faking B and they're actually going A, so then the wall does get value. And the wall still gets value even if they're not here, because that's 30 seconds of info saying, hey, no one's passed this area yet, you don't need to worry about it. So at the beginning of the round, again, we're saying that we don't have a tree player. You know, we're going to be walling this off, and then we're going to be playing here. The idea is that, yes, this does get smoked off, but we can still spray anybody that's running this way, especially once the sensor goes off, then we can spray even more. And then if they do come tree, we have our net, which is our pseudo wall, like I was going over earlier, for if we hear them stomping up catwalk, then we can toss it to slow them down. You know, they're all taking the net off now, and then we're waiting. You know, maybe we do like a pop shot to kind of get them to come over, and then they start running through, sensor goes off, and then we can, you know, fight everywhere here. That's the only way that I say to deal a tree. I never, ever throw my wall into tree. I don't think it's worth it at all. The only reason of throwing the wall in mid over here is because a sensor is not going to work there, because it's very easy to walk past. This area, once you're here and you're here, there's no real way for them to get past. Now, if you have someone like a Jet holding with an op and B main, you can play market with the sensor and hold your wall for, like, once Jet does their one shot, you toss in the wall to stop them from pushing in. You can kind of go for that idea on B, but again, it's just something smaller that I didn't really feel was necessary to go over, but it is an option for you if you want to throw a sensor in mid and then play off of it from there, just like we are doing here in tree. Now, this isn't the only way you have to play. You're more than welcome to still play on site, but you need to make sure that someone is here and let them know that you could, they can play off of your sensor. Then once you're over here, you're just tossing wall goes down. You know, you can do your little jump peek. This is what I like to do, is to do my little jump peek. And if we are, you know, playing back sight, I don't care too much to have my sensor over there. There's I prefer to personally put it like here. And then if we do have that tree person and we're deciding to not put our sensor here, then that's when I would put this sensor over here. This is, again, my bread and butter. This is kind of what we're going over, is like, what's the bread and butter? What are your basic scenarios? How do you play Ascent? This is how I play Ascent. These are my bread and butter sensors right here. And then anything extra from there, I actually don't really run anything too differently when I'm playing A side. One of the other sensors you can do is do a tilted sensor here. This stops anybody from coming into the tree door. And vice versa, if they're coming through tree, they will also get hit by this stun, which is why you can kind of let them come through tree, so long as we know that they aren't getting up towards the window. You still have your sensors to play off of, because you can also do this one down here. I personally don't ever put a sensor here, And I don't think it's a good idea because when people are running up to plant the bomb, they're safe here from any of the angles. It just doesn't really seem worth it to me too much. I personally don't see a benefit in doing that. But yeah, so that's mainly what I'm looking at for defending the A site. If I'm playing tree, then I have my sensor here that I'm playing off of. If someone else is playing tree, you can throw the same sensor. If you're not going to throw that sensor, then you need to be ready to kind of bunker down an A site and get ready to fight everyone. Because
over there,
you really only have these two options to play in. One thing that I always do is you can take advantage of dice actually protecting you to hide in hell. You can walk from dice to hell without the people in main seeing you go back. Just another little thing to throw out there. Then the other option is to get aggressive, which your sensor options are looking at this door. You can throw a tilted sensor and then play close. You can also throw a sensor right here, which you have to throw right at the beginning of the round, but then you can sit right behind this corner and swing off of that. And then you always have this sensor as well. That is the safest of them all. You just have to make sure that your teammates don't smoke you off. So those are the basics, the bread and butter, the little extra tidbits of how I defend a site. It feels really short, but that genuinely really is the only main things that I'm looking at when I'm defending the site. Because the other things I already went over. If you remember, your wall and net act as one and the same ability. So when you're playing on site, I would, and you hear all these guys rushing down, I would net, come sit back, smoke comes down, throw your wall. It is so much stall. It's why she is probably the second best stall agent in the game, right behind Vice. And Vice is only because hers is activatable rather than Deadlock's, which is more reactable than it is like passive. So that's pretty much everything I have to say for the defense side. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the attack, which again is going to be very brief. It's just going to go over the main thing that I think Deadlocks don't do when they are playing on this map. And then I'm going to showcase some of the abilities. So let's go ahead and move into attack. All right, so going into the attack side, what is it that I want to talk about so bad? It's lurking, it's split pushing, it's what I have gotten a little bit of slack for in the past. But I want to emphasize how good it is to lurk on any Sentinel agent, okay? I understand, first off, I just want to quickly say, I understand that Deadlock's main purpose on attack is to get in the site, bunker it down, and play off your utility. I fully understand that. However, that is not what she has to do every single time, and that's actually what I think a lot of people's weakness is when it comes to playing this agent, or any agent in general. People get locked into that you can only do one thing because that is the best way to do it. Sometimes you need to do something different and out of the box to win a round or win a game, because what you're doing normally doesn't work because the enemy team is ready for it. So lurking, split pushing, however you want to call it, because the idea of what I think your end goal as Deadlock lurking ends up technically being split pushing. So the first thing I'm going to say is I much prefer split pushing or lurking on A than I do B. Going through mid solo can be kind of weird. Now, if you're able to do it, like, the main idea being, like, we do, like, a net lineup, and then our team is pushing through, and we go for a late push, through the mid, we're looking, we're probably not worried about here, checking our corners, and then moving up. Again, the whole purpose of this is, like, as I'm going through mid, my team is coming out, and this is perfect. We're finding a timing, clearing this corner, clearing. My team's out, and if you don't find anybody, then you know that everybody is like still rotating or wherever they are, or you find a timing of these people being worried about everybody pushing out, and then you're able to fight that person one-on-one, or you're able to catch a timing on them. And that's the idea, because then we can do what we normally do. We get our wall down, we get our our stun for the push out, and then we come play logs. This is a play that I do all the time. And this is actually some attack advice that I'll give you. I love doing this stun here where you put it on this back wall and then you play logs, because then you sit crouched, and then as soon as the sun comes out, you just back up and you can see the enemies sitting right here for you. That's why I like to lurk. That's how I would do it on B. That's why I find it beneficial. The other idea for A is obviously we're going to be going up this way, and how I do it is I watch the mid over here, because you kind of have to choose one or the other. And I like to choose this because I think everybody over here is going to be too focused on my team stomping through. So then as soon as I get past the stairs over here, I start to look this way. I'll also check over here just in case anybody's pushing out B main. And then I clear all these corners, and then we're up. And then, you know, we got to watch here to be careful because more than likely they're sitting back while your team comes through. They're trying to spray anybody that is coming up to the door. And that's the point. That's what you're trying to get, is you're trying to get this timing. Because, you know, you have your 4 teammates rushing, throwing all their util out, and then you have this person here who's trying to spray through and get the person closing the switch door. That's why you're here, because you're trying to get this person sitting here. And then once you get that person, you can then wall, get your stuff down, you know, you can put a sensor on the bomb, and then you can play tree. That's how I look at it. That's how I play it. Besides that, when I am attacking either site, I'm just playing lineups. For example, I'll go ahead and give you 2 lineups. These won't count for the other lineups I'll show you at the end of the video. But if you, and I don't like inconsistent lineups, but this one is not too bad. If you look at this little post right here and just go slightly to the left and then jump through, this net lands and hits stairs. So that way your duelist can play off of that. So there's a net that I would throw pretty frequently when we're pushing in the B. Once I'm into the B site, I will play off that sensor I was showing earlier. Now the other net that I would throw for A site when we're attacking is one like this, where you are lining up the middle HUD of your util with this gray spike and the white spike right next. So you can see there's a little dip right there. Jump through. And it hits pretty much all of the, like a little bit of dice and pretty much the entirety of gen. And that's what I would throw. And then, you know, that's something I would do when we're rushing in. If we're fully, you know, we're going to be darting, we're going to be dashing out. That's what I would be doing and letting my team, like, hey, I'm going to be netting the back of dice, you know, blah, 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 blah. Now, something that I know some people have seen me, saw me do on stream and they were curious about it. You can do this sensor right here to then jump into heaven once it goes off and fight this person here. Just like that. The only thing is it doesn't cover the entirety of heaven. If you do want to cover the entirety of heaven, you can either do this sensor right here, just like that. The only problem with this one is that it is a little deeper in the sense of like it's more outward, so you kind of have less of a timing for it. And then the other one that's even deeper, but this can expose them to anybody that's playing on site, is this sensor here. And then you can sit on this box and then jump up and fight that person there. There is also one other option. If you look at this wire right here and you turn it as much as you can before it turns red, it does actually cover the entirety of heaven. So this is another option for you to play off of this sensor up here. Just to give you one other thing to look at. Besides that, those are the main things that I do and think about when playing on attack. Should I lurk? Should I not lurk? That idea kind of comes down to whether or not the enemies are playing very passive. If they're playing extremely passive, I don't think lurking is an option. They're going to be watching you. If you are going to lurk, you need to be cautious, clearing every single angle and taking your time. If your team is very rush heavy, I do think lurking is also a great idea because they're going to be rushing and making a ton of noise. And if you can throw a nade on top of it to make it look like you are there with them, then it's even better for you to go lurk. But besides that, playing with your team is going to be the best thing most of the time. So you can do stuff like wall off heaven, play off of the sensors that you have, you know, like this sensor over here. And then also using your net to stop anybody coming through. You know, those are going to be the best things for you to do, but lurking is still an option if needed. That's the idea of it. Another example to give you of lurking and still making your presence looks like you're still there is, so you're going to go 1, 2, 3 lines over, and also I'm just lining up with the edge of this door right here. You take your net out, and again we're going to the top of the 3rd line over, and you'll see that on your HUD there's like a white piece, a gray piece, and it becomes white again before it dips down. I'm taking that 2nd white piece right here and lining it up with the line on the wall, and then you're gonna run jump throw, sorry. And what this does is it's basically the net before that I was showing you. Plant the spike. But you can throw that net at the beginning of the run and then come through mid. Very good fake net to make it seem like your team, you're with your team, because it's doing the same exact thing, just in a different spot so you can lurk. But that is pretty much everything I have to go over for defense and attack. If I didn't cover anything, please ask questions, let me know down below, and I will respond with how I would interpret those situations. If you liked this faster pace video, let me know down below as well. If you didn't like it and would like me to go back to more in-depth, longer video explanations, I would also greatly appreciate that as well. And if you're ready for more Deadlock content in the future, because I do have some newer, unique videos cooking up, please leave a subscribe down below. It does greatly help me out and lets me know that you guys are enjoying the content. But with all that, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to go ahead and leave here and let you guys watch the showcase to see some cool lineups that you may have never seen before. But with all that, thank you guys for tuning in, thank you guys for showing up, and I will see you guys in the next one.
Hold them to their grave! Ultimate ready! Hold them to their grave! Ultimate ready! Nothing there! Hold them to their grave! Ultimate ready! Hold them to their grave! Ultimate ready! Nothing there! Hold them to their grave! Ultimate ready! Nothing there! Hold them to their grave! Ultimate ready! Nothing there! Barrier deployed. No escape. Throw in next.